Welcome back to the Getae Abridged campaign. Last time we continued to somehow not lose our capital, even though we really should have, while at the same time we captured the Scordisci capital and created a new faction there, which finally gives us an advantage in this war. Also up north we were attacked again by the Lugos, but we managed to hold them off, defeating one of their armies, so we're now just after that fight. But actually this fight isn't really over. You'll see what I mean in a second. At least that first army is totally dead. We wiped it out entirely, our garrison's not looking too good, but our little army inside still has some troops, and we'll need them because this happens. The army that for some reason did not participate in that battle and was just watching, comes over and makes the same attack, so we're facing the same battle we just had, but with more enemies and fewer allies. The only advantage we have, quote unquote, is that because the enemy attacks right away, they only have 4 ladders. That means there's 2 ways we can hope to stop the enemy reaching the wall. One is to attempt the exploit thing I was doing last time, sending the melee troops out to fight before they reach the wall to try and make the enemy forget about their ladders, and doing this using the concentrate fire ability on my archers to essentially attack ground in front of the ladders. This allows me to somewhat get around the fact you can't actually target the ladders. The problem is you can only do it once every 30 seconds, and you have to really micromanage it to shoot at where the ladder is at any given time. And more to the point, even doing this wasn't enough to actually take down even a single ladder. So that proved disappointing, and indeed at the same time the troops I had outside trying to stop the ladders being put into position were killed by the fact that the enemy army was just so much bigger than ours. So by the time the enemy got inside, we had like 1 melee unit left. The fight actually went on for a while because almost all the enemy units came up these 2 ladders that were right next to each other, and my Germanic levies made a heroic last stand holding the enemy out, and I think we actually killed quite a few enemies for the amount that we had there defending. In the end though, it was doomed and the enemy broke through. We had a bit of a last stand with our general on the capture point. He eventually dies as well, no fun hoplite style antics to get away with it this time. And he is killed. A noble death. We have lost our little army here, which at least will save us some money. But have we lost the territory? The answer, no. Once again, the Lugos just sack it and leave. So we still haven't had our border pushed back by all of these disasters. Someone wants to be our ally in the south if I pay them for it, and I did agree to that. That was one of the other Dacian nations who we want to be friends with eventually. Don't know much about what's going on to our south. Anyway, then the battle we saw at the start of the last part happens again because we didn't completely destroy the rebellion and it's respawned. So here we go again, defending this Bells town. We've done this before, so we know it's possible. Just like last time, we had the same issue where the enemy's regular units can hide in the open, so they didn't actually appear until they were right in front of us. But at least this time they're in a straight line. Previously they attacked mainly just on the flanks, but now my plan to lure them into the centre and then hit them with the Falksmen in the flanks is more viable. Or is it? Well, not necessarily actually. First we absorbed a ton of jabs with the tactical townsfolk. They did their job pretty well. And the issue we had was things like this, where the enemy line turned out to be really long, so actually outflanking them wasn't going to be an option once everything was revealed. And indeed we have to use our flanking troops to just fill out the centre battle line so we're not outflanked there. Still not the end of the world, because really you only need 1 unit to do outflanking manoeuvres, because if they work you'll free up units and can start peeling up the enemy line from one end. So that's what we're doing here. Our cav are ramming in on our right to start routing enemies, and our archers are also focus firing in this direction to help out. So with that we'll be able to win that fight on the right. I've also got some of my surviving townsfolk doing a flank attack on the left. I don't think it was achieving very much, but just them being there should be demoralizing the enemy somewhat. Anyway, the attack on the right does the business, and you can see the balance bars already really in our favour after we rout the first couple of units. All the Falksmen on the right will now come around and start rear attacking everything. I've switched my archers to attack the enemy general, who's basically dead from the last fight. Now we can quite easily finish him off, and soon enough everything's routing. We have the troops to do surround and pound on all of the remaining troops, so we'll grab the win. The thing is, we still haven't killed all the rebels, but I think there's some kind of rule where if a rebellion army, a rebel army, is defeated twice, it gets the I've retreated rules, meaning all of the troops just die no matter what happens in the battle. Therefore, the rebellion is now over after all that. So we're safe for a while. Although the rebellion being over does mean that another rebellion can now start, so still no guarantee of safety. Some politics came up there, someone's trying to kill me, we know who it is and we can promote them, which I guess stops them trying to kill me, because now they like me again. It's this guy, it's the general of our second army down fighting the Scordisci. And I thought, now that we know he's trying to kill us, can we just click a button to do something about it? But it doesn't really work like that. There's all sorts of things you can do politically, and obviously so far we haven't done anything. But it was at this point that I did start to actually look through these screens. There's all kinds of things you can micromanage, all kinds of stats, numbers and traits on all of the different characters who aren't involved in the game except for being in politics. So you could hire them as generals, but while they're not generals, they're getting up to no good with this spreadsheet simulator. And my personal experience is that if you don't touch anything, it should be fine, because it's so complicated. It takes quite a lot of things to happen to make one of the other political parties rebel against you. Previously when I played as Pontus I just ignored it and nothing bad ever happened anyway, but I'm now going to start messing with things because some people were saying that if I take some politicians and send them out as emissaries to other factions, I might be able to start getting some deals. So I did start doing this, but the problem is if you send a politician from one party, all the other parties then don't like you as the ruling party, and I'm very worried that I'm going to start messing things up and causing the chaotic balance of power to disappear as everyone gradually gets unified against me because of the things I've been trying to do, interfering in the politics system. Right here we force someone to get married. We really are a powerful king or something, I don't know. So yeah, it's going to dabble a tiny bit, but we'll probably keep ignoring the politics for the most part. Back to the action then. The guy who wants to kill me is going to take the army back towards Dacia, where now we're in range of the final region of the Scordisci. Up north, our main force is still, very slowly, moving to the front line, which it's been doing for the last 3 parts or something. Currently they're dying of attrition, they can barely move because of all kinds of different effects that are stacking up on them. I think this area might be running out of food, which could be causing the attrition, although maybe it's just because they're not on the road in winter. That does it as well. It says they have supplies, and they do have a baggage train. Don't really know because it's not completely clear how the supply system works, and I haven't really looked into it, of course. Looks like me trying to do some politics has backfired. The guy I tried to send out as an emissary has betrayed me or something, and now we have a global debuff to troop morale, which is not appreciated. The Orelys guy, the general in the Second Army, has received his promotion and has agreed to not kill us in exchange. Interestingly, on his screen it says he hasn't been promoted. That's the little series of bars with yellow blocks in them that represents their promotion rank level or something. Obviously, don't really know what's going on, and probably for the best that I just leave it, because we don't have that much real-world time. Anyway, we do have something important to do right now. It's time to go and make this attack to reclaim Dacia. And the most important thing here is that the Scordisci main force hasn't come back from raiding our capital yet. So they can't defend this territory. The army that is defending it is still half dead from all of the times that the Scordisci sacked it, actually. Meaning we can easily auto-resolve this place. And then, when I go on to pick Occupy, since this is my own province after all, the remaining Scordisci army will be deleted. That's just because their faction is gone now, and they're not allowed to live on as a horde army or something like that. So bang, all of a sudden, the whole Southern Front thing is over. We've won. The issue is that the economy is still in absolute tatters, so the first thing we need to do in victory is lay off everyone who got it for us. We need to save some cash, so I'm going to start merging units and throwing units out of this second army, since we probably don't need to fight anyone in this area for a bit, although I still haven't really decided what the plan will be in the south, or whether we'll even keep that southern army at all. Up north, we obviously do have some stuff to get on with. Looks like the Lugos are setting up for another invasion at Bodorgis, but our main force is now inside the town, so we can mount a pretty serious defence. However, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to make a defence, because look at this, the Getones, the guys who declared war on us ages ago, are finally attacking. Looks like they're going to take Kronos eventually, which will cut off another bit of our food supply and put us in even more economic trouble, and it will take us forever to take Kronos back if that does happen. So I decided to be more offensive. I don't want to get trapped in the town, wait for the enemy to build siege equipment and then fight them, even if it would be an advantageous fight, because we need to move out now and preferably wipe out the Getones before they attack Kronos. So we start moving up, and I set up an ambush right in front of the Lugos army. Handily enough, they step forward and trigger the ambush, and here we go. We've got a chance to take out the Lugos now and be in our own territory after the fight for a bit of replenishment, which could be nice. Problem is, the Lugos are stronger than us according to the balance bar, and our own army isn't that suited to doing an ambush. Lots of slow-moving shield wall-based units are better for a field defense, perhaps, and I don't think ambushing actually reduces enemy morale in the way you might think it would. But anyway, we've got to see what we can make of this. My first priority was to try and do something about the enemy general, their High King of course, so my Jav Cavs focused on that. And otherwise I'm not doing that much because I didn't want to take my guys out of shield wall formation, so I've just got this little line sitting in the forest. The enemy army can easily outflank me, but we're drawing some of their troops away. On the other side of the road I've got my baggage train and some skirmishers just running from the enemy and being a distraction. We also did have one deployable fireball thing at the start, which actually got a couple of kills despite not really having a hill to use it on. So anyway, my main micro focus, as I said, was attacking this general with the Jav Cav, and that worked pretty well. That general actually dies shortly after the start of the battle, which will really help. But we've also got some trouble. At the left end of our line, the enemy's cavalry just forced their way right through my Germanic levies who were defending the flank. I'm folding back my skirmishers here because they could be in trouble. But luckily enough, these cav generally just hung around this area. They were trying to rear attack our main line. But that line has high enough morale to not rout from that, and they're strong against the cav, so they hold on. In the meantime, we're going to make our big power play. All of my Jav Cav are getting behind the enemy's main line after finishing off the enemy general. While I could just stand there and throw jabs, it's going to be much more effective to just ram into the back. Might not kill as many, but that's going to be a huge morale shock, and we just need to get everyone to leave. There's a risk here of being enveloped ourselves, but the effect takes place fast enough. You can see tons of enemy units along that main line of the fight start routing, and now they're going to be absolutely screwed. They have almost no chance of escaping because we also have our horse archers marauding around at the other end of the line. The baggage train is having some trouble. Their mission to draw away enemies has been successful, but they've ended up in melee with them. They can't skirmish naturally, so I need to micro them to get them out of there, but I think they did actually rout, unfortunately. Still, they've done their job. We've kept some enemies out of the fight, making this little engagement here easier. We're getting totally outflanked. The enemy are behind our very narrow shield wall, but it doesn't really matter because we have enough of an advantage and enough stuff all over the place to deal with this, and we start seeing more and more routes from the enemy. And one of the great things we can do in this battle is actually use our horse archers to kill the routing enemies, because now that they've leveled up a few times, they don't rout from the formation breached thing. I'm sure they can manage it as well if they just have full unit strength or something, but they tend not to with me because I do tend to use those horse archers as a melee unit, and they're not very good at that, so they keep getting killed. Anyway, everything starts routing all over the place. We slaughter the enemy army along the road, and after that I just had to finish off the units that ran away chasing our skirmishers earlier. The cav see to that, and the battle ends in a heroic victory. Things went very well in the end. The enemy didn't really do anything particularly special to exploit my not very good ambushing army. In fact, really, they just ran into the front of a shield wall, so that's all good. It was just a very fast version of a regular battle, and we absolutely annihilated them. The entire army is gone. That gives the added bonus of allowing you to ransom back the captives just to no one. You still get the money, the captives are also still dead, so really it's the best of all worlds. Some more bad news, more I shouldn't have tried to do any politics stuff happening. Someone's betrayed us and now we've lost trade income as a result. And on the topic of money, we're going to be bankrupt next turn at the moment, so we're back to having no money. We need to do something about that post-haste. I hoped I could advance with this force and take the Lugos town, but no, we can't get close enough. So instead I thought I'll advance part way and hide the army in the forest just in case. Mess that up, don't have enough movement points to do it. Instead I can fortify. It would have been great to actually raid instead, because that would have reduced my upkeep on this army. Although we can still avoid bankruptcy for one turn at least by going to our second army and merging units and generally downsizing it, trying to keep the units with a lot of experience in general. We can't completely get rid of the second army because I do have a use for it right now. There's currently a big rebellion building up in our home province, so the second army's general mission will be to go and deal with that. Here it is. Can't tell much about it other than that it's big and that the garrison nearby is small, so need to try and stop them taking over. The Getae are doing that annoying move that I was worried about. They're going to gradually go and take Kronos, which will be really hard and take a really long time for us to undo. So as I said, going for their home territory is really the only viable strategy there. We'll try and destroy their faction and get them to despawn or something. And then that rebel army I was just talking about does attack the town, but while it was big, it turns out it's full of absolute trash. It's just tons of Dacian townsfolk. They're ranked up Dacian townsfolk, which relatively makes a big difference. Low-level units gain a lot from getting experience. But still, that's not too much of an imposing army build, and we do have the good map, the one where it's a big choke point in front of the capture point, so we can organise something here. The plan was to just hold them at the choke point, while a bunch of guys are set off to the side to come and outflank the enemy blob once it sets up. They do though have one decent unit, their general, with 100 heavy shock cav. They rode up to us, then kind of stopped after we shot them with some arrows, thought they might just glitch out and stand there while we gradually killed them, but unfortunately they did then decide they're going to keep going and they charge into the front of our militia. I guess it was less of a charge than it could have been if they just piled on in from far away, and the militia do hold against this charge. They take a ton of losses, but they don't rout. And now the militia presumably have a bonus against cav. Shock cav aren't that good in melee, and we can hit them with arrows as they sit there. So that's not all that bad. But look at this, in comes the enormous horde of trash Dacian townsfolk. And we know from experience that Dacian townsfolk are a particularly bad townsfolk unit compared to other factions. Anyway, unfortunately my plan to outflank them didn't work at all, because a big block of the townsfolk came over to just attack my group. So we're going to just fight them separately over here. The Falksmen will do okay against them. Here, where it's townsfolk on townsfolk, the enemy have the advantage because they're leveled up, but we can position them, or out-position them, to get better morale. The main fight at the choke point is going good actually. The general died and his cav unit routed, so that's going to start encouraging the rout of everything else, which probably has low morale to begin with. Also, all these townsfolk have no armour, so shooting them with arrows is particularly effective. Takes a long time for these low quality archers to bother firing, but when they do, they get a lot of kills, and we easily start racking up kills into the triple figures against these townsfolk. Plus, they're not really going to get through the militia. Even though militia are really bad, townsfolk are even worse. So they do rout fighting them, and you don't have to kill very many to rout them, and gradually the pressure is let off, and soon we see a horde running away from our town, a horde that's a little bit more thinned out compared to the one we saw coming in. So with this, we have effectively won this battle. There's no way they'll get through to the capture point, and there's no way they'll kill us all, so just need to finish them off. The other group fighting where my Falksmen were lasted for a long time for some reason, but eventually I brought everything over to attack from all sides, and we finally convinced those townsfolk to leave. Curious that the townsfolk are probably rebelling because of my war against the Scordisci. Whether they're rebelling against my exploits or rebelling because they wanted the Scordisci to win, I don't really know. But the end result of that fight isn't especially conclusive. Because the enemy routed so much, a lot of the troops escaped alive, so we're probably still going to have to deal with that situation. It was nice though, because it made us a load of money ransoming back the captives there. Annoyingly, the general who we killed just respawned, so now they've got another full unit of shock cav, their one good unit. Well, at least our second army is on the way over. I'm also sending a spy out east here because I'm really surprised that the Royal Scythians haven't invaded us yet, so I want to see what they're doing. And our second army will then hang out in this area on the presumption that they're going to attack, because they really hate us and they do have the aggressive and treacherous leader type. The Lugos have sent a general and one unit to attack Bedorgis from the south, but I'm just going to ignore that for now. They've also, for some reason, got a new army right next to where my army is, and the Suebos are here, another Germanic faction. They're not involved in the war in any way, they're just watching. Still, we need to press on and attack the Lugos town, mainly to get to the Getones town. However, because I'm somehow in the zone of control of this new Lugos army, I have to fight them first before I'm allowed to do anything, so I have to go back. This battle wasn't the best auto-resolve, but I really couldn't be bothered to do it either, so we hit the protective stance and get away without too many casualties. So that's them gone. However, now I'm out of movement range of the town, and this was so incredibly frustrating. So we'll just have to move up a little bit again. At least this time, I can save enough movement points to be raiding this turn. That means we'll be losing less money. And between this, the money we got from killing those stationed townsfolk, and the reduction in our army size, we do now have quite a lot more time until we go bankrupt. But we don't have that much time until the Getae attack us, unless we do this. I went to them and gave a termless peace, and they actually agreed to it. So suddenly it seemed like we weren't going to get screwed over by these guys, couldn't get anything else. But then, as I went through to the start of the next turn, they immediately went back into war with us. I think it might be the Lugos forcing them into this war. Anyway, so their army has continued on, and the threat is still going to emerge. The little moment of hope there is immediately gone. Also mentioned there that a child has died, and the fact it mentioned it means it's probably someone in the royal family. I was taking a look here. Wasn't really sure who that child was. It might have been the child of the king. Anyway, now we've got a new king or something. This new guy has spawned out of somewhere. Really not following the situation very closely. I did decide here to give the guy who's king a sword ancillary, which increases his gravitas. I think that matters. I think your ruler needs to be really gravitas-y, or maybe that was in Attila. As for the political parties, they don't really like what's going on anymore. Shouldn't have tried to do anything, as I said, and the really annoying factor is that the main reason they hate me is other factors. That's the most unuseful information ever. Something is bad, we can't tell what it is, so we're probably going to go back to doing nothing. Here I almost thought I'll use this improve relations thing to try and get the parties back on board with the king and stuff, but then I came to my senses and thought, no, everything you do costs money and can cause political bad things to happen as the downside of action, so we're just going to go back to ignoring it. That really seems to be the best option. Now, as for the Getae situation, they've got another army now that's emerged, so things are looking a little bit worse. However, they were willing to go back to peace with me. Obviously, after what just happened, that seems a little bit meaningless, but it increases the chance, I suppose, that we're not going to get taken down. However, it's also winter. That means we can't move very far, and once again we can't attack this Lugos town. We've been so delayed in this campaign, and the fact that the Suebos army is randomly standing in front of us even prevents us from edging closer to guarantee it next time, so this is just really annoying. We do not have time for this, but then again, there's nothing else we can do, so we have to just keep waiting and pressing on. But we can end this part on a positive note. I've got the food situation back to a point where I'm allowed to tax Lugia without being in starvation mode, and that means we actually have a bit of income now, and I can even use that to grab a new general to defend against the one Lugos guy who's hanging around. Just need a general and a few levies. I started going through the politics system to try and get someone good. I wanted to get a general who's from a party that really doesn't like us but is also influential, so that this guy will become famous and then maybe they'll like us more or something. Trying to play the system, well, we'll see if anything comes of that. And we'll see, of course, how the campaign progresses in general in the next part.